In the ruins of the Chernobyl nuclear power plant, silence is not merely the absence of sound, it is oppressive. Decades after the 1986 disaster, the exclusion zone remains suspended in time, shrouded by reports of inexplicable phenomena. What should be strictly a memorial has instead become the stage for unsettling supernatural occurrences. Amidst empty buildings and ghost towns, many believe something was left behind, watching and waiting. The silence of the exclusion zone. Upon crossing the boundaries of the Chernobyl exclusion zone, the initial sensation is not immediate fear, but rather profound disorientation, a discomfort difficult to articulate, which arises even before any inexplicable event takes place. There is no familiar sound of wind rustling through trees, nor the distant chirping of birds or the drone of insects. What dominates the environment is a deep, dense, almost solid silence, as if the very air were stagnant. Explorers report that this silence does not behave like that of an ordinary uninhabited area. It seems to react to human presence. In certain spots, footsteps echo in an exaggerated manner, while in others they are completely muffled, as though the ground were swallowing them whole. There are moments when even the sound of one's own breathing becomes unsettling, fostering the perception that any noise constitutes an unwelcome intrusion. Many describe the distinct impression of being observed, even without seeing anything at all. The silence acts as a non-verbal warning, an invisible boundary that the visitor senses should not be transgressed. Some claim that lingering too long in certain areas precipitates intense psychological pressure, accompanied by vertigo, sudden anxiety, and an inexplicable compulsion to vacate the premises immediately. Researchers suggest that this phenomenon transcends mere abandonment or the absence of animal life. To them, the silence of Chernobyl carries an accumulated emotional charge, saturated with the panic, haste, and despair of the disaster day, as if the environment itself had absorbed the collective trauma and was reproducing it in the form of oppressive stillness. It is within this silence that many claim to feel the boundary between the world of the living and something beyond becoming attenuated, a space where sound seems disallowed, as though something were demanding reverence, vigilance, or obedience. And perhaps the most unsettling realization is that when the silence begins to fracture, it does not yield to life, but to something far more disquieting. Immediately following the absolute quiet, sounds emerge that should never be heard. The frequencies of lamentation. After experiencing the absolute silence of the exclusion zone, some explorers believe that nothing could be more unsettling than that total absence of sound. But it is precisely when this silence begins to break that true discomfort sets in. Not with common noises, but with sounds that seem to carry emotion, pain, and suffering. Recordings captured at various locations throughout Chernobyl have registered what has become known among investigators as the lament frequencies. They are not clearly identifiable voices, nor are they mechanical noises. They are distant murmurs, muffled moans, and drawn-out sounds reminiscent of stifled weeping. Most unnervingly, these recordings persist in registering these sounds even when no one is nearby and no environmental factors can account for them. Some researchers report that upon playback of the audio files, the feeling of anguish is almost immediate. Individuals describe chills, a lump in the throat, and a sudden onset of sorrow, as if they were privy to the suffering of someone who can no longer be aided. In certain segments, the sounds appear to fluctuate in intensity, as if reacting to human presence or movement within the environment. Some speculate that these frequencies constitute emotional echoes left behind by the disaster's victims, a type of invisible imprint of the panic experienced during the evacuation, tethered to the contaminated soil and structures. Others posit the hypothesis of spiritual manifestations, suggesting that the souls who have found no rest continue attempting to express themselves in some manner. Most disquieting is that these laments do not seem to emanate from a fixed point. They surface, dissipate, and reappear in disparate locations, as though traversing the exclusion zone without definitive direction, a phantasmal soundtrack threading through vacant buildings, dark corridors, and derelict cities. Yet for some explorers, the true terror commences when these sounds cease to be merely audible and are instead accompanied by something visible. At specific locations within Chernobyl, the lament does not arrive alone. It is preceded by lights that should not exist. Inexplicable luminous manifestations. Amidst the perpetual gloom of Chernobyl's abandoned structures, some explorers claim to have witnessed something that fundamentally contradicts the site's reality. Lights. Not searchlights, flashlights, or any discernible source, but points of light that materialize out of thin air, hover for a few seconds, and vanish without a trace. These manifestations typically occur in open areas of the exclusion zone, near ruined buildings or in passageways where electrical power has been absent for decades. The lights range in intensity and chromaticity, spanning from a faint whitish glow to stronger azure and yellow hues. Most unsettlingly, they appear to move with intentionality, smoothly altering direction as if scrutinizing the surrounding environment. Witnesses report that upon attempting to approach these lights, they either recede slowly or extinguish suddenly. In some instances, multiple points of illumination emerge simultaneously, creating the impression that something is shadowing the visitors from afar. There are accounts of electronic equipment malfunctioning precisely the moment these lights manifest, which further deepens the enigma. A subset of researchers contend that these manifestations might be attributable to natural phenomena not yet fully comprehended, possibly linked to radiation or residual electromagnetic discharges. Nevertheless, this explanation fails to satisfy those who have been on site and perceived something beyond the mere visual spectacle. Many describe an immediate, visceral sense of alarm, as if those lights signaled the presence of something deliberately seeking concealment. To paranormal investigators, these lights are spiritual manifestations, a form of energy that eschews human shape but manifests through luminescence, a presence that observes, navigates, and dissipates upon sensing detection. Most disconcerting, however, is the fact that in several accounts these lights do not appear in isolation. They tend to precede another, even more unsettling phenomenon, one that ceases to be merely visual and begins to interact directly with the collective memory of the catastrophe. And when the lights extinguish, what follows does not illuminate, it warns, and the resulting sound echoes directly from the past. Sirens echoing without an origin point. Following the dissipation of the inexplicable lights, many explorers believe the worst has passed. But in Chernobyl, terror rarely manifests in a singular manner. At certain moments, when the environment returns to a palpable tension of silence, a familiar sound erupts abruptly, the distant echo of the evacuation sirens. Witnesses report that the sound does not begin loudly or immediately. It starts faintly, almost imperceptibly, like a metallic lament carried on the wind. Gradually it becomes clearer, reverberating through derelict buildings and empty streets. The most disturbing aspect is that there are no functional sirens left in the region. The systems were decommissioned decades ago, and many structures are no longer even intact. For those experiencing the phenomenon, the sensation is one of immediate reversion to the day of the disaster. The sound ignites panic, urgency, and profound anxiety, as if something were poised to happen all over again. Some explorers report difficulty breathing, tachycardia, and an overwhelming compulsion to flee the area as soon as the sirens begin to sound. There are those who assert that the sound is not sustained. It emerges, vanishes for a few seconds, and returns from another direction, creating the impression that it traverses the exclusion zone. In certain accounts, the sound appears to draw nearer, even when there is no visible source. A phantasmal warning that offers no guidance, only relentless haunting. Researchers have attempted to attribute the phenomenon to auditory illusions stemming from stress or environmental interference. Yet, recordings made by different teams across distinct periods have captured similar sounds, bolstering the theory that something there still resonates with the chaos of that fateful day. For many, these sirens are not merely reverberations of the past, but an eternal repetition of the moment everything spun irrevocably out of control, a warning that persists in its broadcast even when there is no one left to evacuate. And for some explorers, the true terror commences when the sound of the sirens is finally extinguished and something appears to stir precisely where the sound had emanated from. For when the alert vanishes, forms that ought not to exist manifest, shadows belonging to no one. Shadows drifting amongst the rubble. When the sirens cease and silence is restored, many anticipate that the tension will finally dissipate. Yet in Chernobyl, the vacuum seldom equates to tranquility. It is within this disquieting interval that accounts surface of something even more profoundly disturbing. Shadows mobilizing where absolutely no human presence exists. Explorers recount seeing dark entities traversing corridors, stairwells, and ruptured doorways, even when all light sources remain utterly static. Unlike conventional shadows, these neither track the observer's movement nor adhere to any discernible physical logic. They materialize abruptly, glide along walls, or sweep across the field of vision, only to dissipate within seconds. Most unsettlingly, these shadows seem to possess distinct form. Some bear resemblance to human silhouettes, featuring the outlines of a head, torso, and limbs. Others appear severely distorted, elongated beyond measure, as if willfully flouting natural proportions. In numerous accounts, the perception is not merely visual but visceral, a palpable impression of a presence, as though someone is immediately nearby, observing in profound silence. There are instances where these specters appear reactive to human attention. Upon detection, they instantaneously alter their direction or recede into deeper shadow. In specific sectors of the plant and the abandoned city, witnesses attest to having viewed multiple shadows concurrently, suggesting a collective movement or grouping. Researchers have attempted to ascribe the phenomenon to optical illusions, mental exhaustion, or stress-induced hallucinations. Nevertheless, the recurrent pattern inherent in the accounts, originating from diverse individuals across distinct timelines, precipitates profoundly unsettling questions. Many contend that these shadows are, in fact, manifestations of the lingering souls unable to vacate the premises following the catastrophe. The terror is intensified when certain explorers recount hearing soft, distinct footsteps immediately following a sighting of the shadows, footfalls that correspond to none of their own movements. These sounds suggest that the entity mobilizing along the walls might eventually attempt a closer proximity. And for certain investigators, this is merely the nascent stage, because in some documented instances, the shadows transition from being merely indistinct shapes and begin the attempt to communicate. For when the presence acquires vocalization, the mystery escalates to a vastly more perilous dimension. Before we move forward in the video, make sure you're already subscribed to the Dark Trail channel and that the notification bell is turned on. Now let's continue. Voices captured via electronic recording devices. When the shadows recede from mere perception and the environment plunges back into silence, many assume the worst has abated. But in Chernobyl, the terror is seldom confined to the visually perceptible. Across numerous sectors of the exclusion zone, paranormal investigators have documented something even more disquieting: voices emanating where no one is present. Digital recorders, portable radios, and various other electronic apparatuses began registering inexplicable sounds during nocturnal explorations. These are not typical interferences or random static noise. They are whispers, isolated words, and even short phrases that manifest without warning, frequently during moments of profound ambient silence. What renders this phenomenon even more unnerving is the context within which these voices surface. In some recordings, they appear to respond to verbal inquiries posed by the investigators. In others, they emerge spontaneously, as if something is attempting to initiate contact. There are accounts of voices mentioning numbers, names, or terminology connected to the plant and the day of the catastrophe, thereby intensifying the conviction that this is not a matter of mere chance. Some researchers hypothesize that Chernobyl functions as an environment conducive to anomalous electromagnetic manifestations. The residual presence of radiation, combined with derelict metallic structures, could engender conditions for phenomena that remain poorly understood. Nevertheless, this rationale fails to satisfy those who have been on site and experienced the profound emotional resonance associated with the recordings. Individuals who have listened to the audio recount intense physical sensations, sudden shivers, chest pressure, and a palpable sense that the voices carry intent. They do not merely sound like echoes from the past, but conscious attempts at communication. For many investigators, this marks the juncture where fear ceases to be abstract. When something unseen not only manifests, but actively seeks an audience, the boundary between the realm of the living and the unknown appears to dissolve. And for some seasoned explorers, the dread intensifies further when these voices are accompanied by something visually recognizable. In certain accounts, the captured words do not belong to ephemeral shadows, but to figures still traversing the plant's corridors. The apparitions of the plant operators. Among all the narratives surrounding Chernobyl, few prove as profoundly disturbing as those involving human apparitions. Within the nuclear plant's operational corridors and in abandoned technical areas, witnesses claim to have observed figures that resemble neither vague silhouettes nor undefined shadows, but actual people, individuals attired as former operators, wearing uniforms that directly evoke the final moments preceding the catastrophe. These apparitions do not behave like traditional ghosts. They do not materialize to deliberately frighten, nor do they demonstrate awareness of visitors' presence. In many accounts, operators are seen walking through corridors, pausing before non-existent control panels, or surveying specific structural points, as if they were still tethered to the work routine of that fateful day. Some explorers describe scenes that appear to repeat themselves endlessly. An operator traverses the same corridor, performs the same gesture, and invariably vanishes at the identical spot. On subsequent visits, the pattern reiterates, suggesting that time itself is fragmented at that particular point within the plant. The prevailing sensation is not merely one of haunting, but of an event caught in a perpetual loop, unable to progress. The psychological impact of these encounters is profound. Witnesses report an overwhelming sense of sorrow, guilt, and urgency, as if they were observing something that ought not to be interrupted. Some assert they feel the presence of these operators, even when unseen, accompanied by an oppressive heaviness in the atmosphere and an abrupt shift in temperature. Paranormal investigators posit that these apparitions are intrinsically linked to the extreme emotional charge experienced during the disaster. The fear, responsibility, and despair are thought to have been so intensely imprinted upon the location that they continue to manifest decades later. These are not believed to be spirits seeking attention, but rather fragments of a tragedy that never achieved closure. For many, this is the most difficult element to dismiss. When the supernatural assumes human form and relives a genuine moment of suffering, the terror ceases to be abstract and becomes profoundly personal. Yet there are accounts of something even more disquieting, because some presences at Chernobyl do not seem bound to the past, but rather cognizant of their mission. The guardians of the disaster. Among all the phenomena reported at Chernobyl, none is as unnerving as the notion that some presences are not merely shackled to the past, but actively aware of what they are safeguarding. Explorers assert they are not alone, even without seeing or hearing anything. A constant sense of surveillance, as if something is monitoring every movement, assessing who may or may not remain within that territory. These particular presences are described differently from the other manifestations. They do not appear as shadows, voices, or human apparitions. They reveal themselves through intense sensations, a sudden pressure in the atmosphere, abrupt thermal shifts, and a distinct perception of boundary. There are accounts of explorers experiencing sudden, inexplicable dread upon attempting to access specific zones, as if an entity were actively barring their progress. Some maintain that electronic equipment malfunctions precisely when nearing specific locations. Batteries drain without warning, cameras switch off autonomously, and radios fall completely silent. For many, this is not attributed to common interference, but rather a deliberate attempt to deter unwanted visitors. Conversely, there are opposing reports. Individuals who entered the exclusion zone with reverence and prudence assert that they sensed a form of safeguarding, as if an unseen force steered them away from perilous sectors or silently cautioned them to withdraw. This very duality substantiates the notion that Chernobyl is not merely haunted, it is actively protected. Paranormal investigators posit that these custodians are spiritual manifestations intrinsically linked to the collective memory of the catastrophe. Entities whose mandate is not to terrify but to maintain preservation, sustaining the cautionary tale of what transpired there and preempting the site from being relegated to a mere curiosity or tourist attraction. The most unsettling contemplation is that, should these custodians genuinely exist, they observe far more than just visitors. They stand sentinel over history itself. Within this framework, Chernobyl ceases to be merely a desolate location and is transformed into a liminal territory where the past remains present, conscious, and acutely aware. And perhaps the question is not whether Chernobyl is haunted, but whether it will ever permit itself to fade from memory. Chernobyl transcends being simply a symbol of nuclear peril. For many, it represents a nexus between worlds, a threshold where the supernatural and reality converge amid silence, shadows, and imperceptible echoes. Sirens that should remain dormant, voices of unknown provenance, inexplicable illumination, and presences that seem never to have truly departed. The lingering inquiry is straightforward. Would you possess the fortitude to explore the supernatural enigmas of Chernobyl? Chernobyl transcends being simply a symbol of nuclear peril. For many, it represents a nexus between worlds, a threshold where the supernatural and reality converge amid silence, shadows, and imperceptible echoes. Sirens that should remain dormant, voices of unknown provenance, inexplicable illumination, and presences that seem never to have truly departed. The lingering inquiry is straightforward. Would you possess the fortitude to explore the supernatural enigmas of Chernobyl? Let us know in the comments below if you would dare undertake this experience. And if you enjoyed this video, please subscribe to the channel, hit that like button, and check out the feature on the world's most haunted cemeteries, now available on your screen. Until the next broadcast from the Dark Trail channel.